Welcome to another episode of Divorce TV. And we've got Una Archer, who is a child psychologist, who will be finishing the show in the healing side of things. So you might wonder, what would a child psychologist be doing that's healing? But we'll find out at the end of the show. And Erika Englund will be our expert today. And Erika's been through a recent divorce from her law firm. So we'll be finding out about that. And she's also a very experienced California mediator. So she'll be giving us some great guidance on how to get the best out of mediation and some kind of hot tips, especially for parents. But first of all, let's move on to the news. And I'm going to start with Express today. We have Philip Schofield has broken his social media silence. So everyone in the UK knows Philip Schofield. Following claims he's set to amicably divorce his wife Stephanie Lowe 7 months after he came out as gay. Now, last week, The Sun claimed Philip and his wife had discussed getting a divorce in very loose and casual terms, a source said. Philip and Steph have had a lot of hard, painful conversations over the past 10 months, but remain as tight and devoted to one another as ever. She's been so supportive, and he won't skip off into the sunset now and abandon her. At the same time, he has no desire to become embroiled in a bitter and costly divorce battle. Well, that's good to hear. Moving forward to from Al Monitor in Egypt. So Egypt's presidency clashes with religious institutions over verbal divorce. Now, the context of this is that a Muslim man could legally divorce his wife. This is in case you are not aware of this. By pronouncing talaq, the Arabic word for divorce, 3 times. The pronouncement could be oral or written, or in recent times delivered by electronic means such as telephone, SMS, email or social media. Now, calls for new legislation in Egypt to annul verbal divorce, namely by President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, raise the ire of Al-Azhar and other religious institutions already at odds with the president. Now, some of you might think that's a great way to get a divorce, just say the word 3 times. But there's been some real problems with it. The Administrative Court of the Egyptian State Council ruled in September that it does not have jurisdiction to look into the case, demanding the Minister of Justice to amend the personal status law in such a way to annul verbal divorce and have it authenticated officially by virtue of written documents. The legal case was also directed against the Grand Imam of Al-Azhar, Ahmed El-Tayeb, to renounce verbal divorce, as many Egyptians, under daily pressure and stress, express orally their intention of divorce without any real will to do so. Tayeb and Al-Azhar's Council of Senior Scholars categorically rejected Sisi's call for the need for divorce authentication, on the basis that divorce verbally pronounced is the rule in Sharia. At the time, Sisi said that according to the Central Agency for Public Mobilisation and Statistics, 40% of marriage unions end up in divorce within 5 years, which threatens the stability of Egyptian families and children. He added that the new legislation would give couples a chance to reconsider a decision they might have made out of anger. Mahmoud Mana, a member of the Council of Senior Scholars, believes that the authentication of divorce does not necessarily mean a clash between the law and religion. A middle ground formula can be reached in a bid to preserve family unity and stability in light of the alarming increase in the number of divorce cases, without undermining Sharia rules, Mana told Al Monitor in a phone interview. Mana stressed that Parliament has the right to issue a law to authenticate verbal divorce, but after considering the stance of Al-Azhar, to agree on a formula that is satisfactory to all parties. So this is what they've come up with, luckily. He noted that a formula has been reached between the 2 parties, whereby a divorce occurs when orally pronounced, with the new bill requesting the husband to document the divorce within 24 hours. Otherwise, he faces penalties. I believe this is the middle ground between the legal and the religious text, Mana concluded. And our final news item for today is Matt Dawson divorce, again another one that the UK members of the UK will be familiar with. Why has Matt split with wife of 11 years? In a statement posted to his Twitter on Monday, Matt revealed he and Carolyn decided their relationship needs a new direction. Matt tweeted, "We know this will be a surprise to most, but after 11 years together, Carolyn and I have decided our relationship needs a new direction, bringing our marriage to an end. The love for our beautiful boys grows stronger day by day, as does our friendship as co-parents." In a separate tweet, he added, "To our dear friends, please continue to support us positively as you can for the next stage of our lives. It's vital that Alex and Sammy understand that we will always be a united family." And good luck to them both. And it's fantastic that they are being so open and determined to make sure that their children know that they're still a family. Just because mummy and daddy don't live in the same house, that doesn't stop you being a family. I'm now going to bring in our guest for the evening, or depending on what time of day you're watching, Erika Englund. Now, Erika, I mentioned earlier, Erika got divorced recently from her law firm. So we're going to have our intro slide, and then I'm going to bring in Erika to explain what on earth's going on. Why would anyone who is a qualified lawyer leave their firm? Welcome, Erika. It's lovely to see you on the show again. Are you going to have to unmute yourself? Unmute yourself because we want to hear what you have to say.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be back with you.
And perhaps we could just start with, why would you, since we last spoke, you have got divorced from your own law firm. So what's going on there?
I realized it was a toxic relationship. And, when we see our friends going through these relationships, it's from the outside. We're asking, why are they still doing that? But in one's own relationship, it can be much harder to see. And with everything, the difficulties of COVID just really magnifying the stress of being a divorce attorney, which is a stressful job to begin with. I just decided we were done.
And what was there anything particular about, because for those who don't know, you're a very experienced mediator, and you haven't left mediation, have you?
I have almost entirely left. Yes. So as of now, I'm not taking any new clients and just speaking about mediation. I'll be speaking at the Sacramento Women's Convention on October 10th. But my new position as the Chief of Strategy with SupportPay is taking all my time and actually using all the same skills.
So tell us, what is SupportPay? Because it's something that a lot of us in the UK may not know about, but it's incredibly useful if you're going through divorce or family change.
It certainly is. I mean, how many people have you heard say, "I wish I never had to talk to my ex about money again"? And that's the problem we solve.
So how do you do that?
It's the world's only child support and spousal support management app that's built on a financial platform. So it allows parents to really easily make payments, communicate about expenses, keep track of all payments and reimbursements, and even dispute items when they don't agree to pay something or they think something is wrong. So it keeps the conflict down because the parents are communicating about money. And then also, it keeps a lovely record of everything that's been paid. So whether parents do pay an ongoing amount of support each month or they don't, they'll still have expenses with their children like ballet and art class and school tuition. And all of these expenses can be exchanged and tracked through the site.
Fabulous. But we're going to make the most, while we have you here, of your many years of experience in mediation and helping families. So one of the questions I've got for you is, how do you decide whether you should mediate or go to court?
I only told clients that there were 3 reasons that they would be in court. One reason is your spouse is in court, so you've got to show up. The other is that you need the court protection. And that's something like, whether it could be financial abuse, physical abuse, you're concerned about your children being exposed to something that they can't see. But essentially, that you need the protection of the court. The third scenario, no one marries a narcissist, but quite a few people divorce them. And someone who truly has a narcissistic personality or some other inability to mediate will bring both people into court.
And but for the vast majority of people, they're not in those categories, are they? So there's two. Would you agree that
correct.
too many people are ending up in court who really shouldn't be there?
Oh, wildly so. And it's two reasons why. Attorneys are financially motivated and they are ethically obligated to work in the interest of the client. And so this means that they get into the case and they begin billing and billing and billing under the guise of protecting the client. And this increases the acrimony and increases the litigation, and it's a cycle that just gets worse and worse. The other reason that people are in court when they don't need to be is they can't afford attorneys. And the only assistance that we give people in the United States, if they can't afford attorneys, is pushing them through the courtroom. We unfortunately don't have any assistance at all, any path through the courthouse that is mediated path. So there are a great number of people who don't have any disputes, and yet they're still pushed through the litigation pathway.
It's a bit insane, really, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. And have you got some tips for us for parenting plans? Because I'm always encouraging people to really early on and often using mediators to help them create the parenting plans. But the ages of the children can make a huge difference to that. What kind of considerations would you encourage people to think about?
That's a wonderful question. Parenting plans are so personal. Often we see people looking to the internet or asking their friends what their parenting plan should be, but it really needs to be based on your own family. And that is really four corners, as I used to draft them. How flexible versus how structured does your parenting plan need to be? For example, parents that are very high conflict need a very structured parenting plan telling them what they are doing on Wednesday night at 8:30. Whereas parents that are very agreeable can even have a parenting plan that says nothing more than, we're going to share time with the children. So along that spectrum of flexibility all the way to structure, every family is going to be in a different spot. And that's the first question that I would have people ask themselves. And then the second is, how do you balance the needs of the children against the needs of the parents? So we may have some children that do not like to transition. They like to have longer periods of time in a home. But then we also might have parents that are traveling and they're gone for long periods of time. So in real life, we have to think about what's going on with your own family, how much structure you need and how much flexibility, what your children's needs are, and what your practical life is demanding of you. And with all of those things, people are often dealing with multiple children who, if they're anything like mine, have very different personalities. So if this is the case, generally what we suggest is you adapt your parenting plan to the younger child or the more anxious child. This way, the child who's older or less anxious is going to be okay, but we've got a net that we know is catching everybody.
That's brilliant advice. I'd not heard that before. I think that's excellent. Would you agree that even if a couple are at war over the finances, that doesn't mean they can't use mediation to agree around the children and create a healthy, well-boundaried parenting plan?
Absolutely, they can. And sometimes the side effect of that is that they're able to actually realize the powerful opportunity that mediation creates for them to stop fighting about those financial issues as well. So they'll come in and they'll begin talking in a productive way, and putting together a parenting plan that's respectful to each parent, and they're communicating in a way maybe they haven't communicated in years. And they're able to look at what they're doing in court and say, maybe we don't need to even be doing that anymore. So often, yes, the parenting plan can be the gateway drug to an entirely mediated process.
Yeah, I think so too. And tools, what kind of tools as a mediator would you recommend that are constructive for discussion with a spouse? What kind of guidance have you given as a mediator to couples to help the communication be better? Because as you say, they may have spent many years having very dysfunctional communication.
My first piece of advice to them is always, if it's not working, stop. So you know your communication patterns well enough by now that if you're trying to resolve something outside of a session, it gets heated, you get into your conflict dynamic, just stop. That's why you have a professional that you can call or text or set a meeting with who can guide you through it. The other suggestion is to use some agreed upon communication guidelines and ground rules. So writing down on a piece of paper, when we have discussions inside or outside of mediation, we will, for example, not interrupt each other, not use swear words, not yell, be focused on the future. Everybody's ground rules might be different, but there's a great power in writing them and setting them on the table between you, whether you're in or you're out of mediation sessions.
I think that's brilliant. That's brilliant advice, because quite often people might be shouting through habit and not even realise or conscious. If you can point at it on the bit of paper, it might be enough to remind them. And finally,
I literally do that.
Yeah. It's just such a good tool. And finally, I mean, some people who are going through divorce, it's been a long gap before they've already kind of moved on. They're not in trauma stage. They're actually thinking about dating again. What kind of guidance do you have for people who are at that stage and they really want to go out there and move forwards and perhaps date and find a new partner?
Oh, wow. I have a lot. I've been there personally. First, recognize that your partner that you've just left is maybe not at the same stage that you are. And so keeping your dating life private and not bringing your children early into a relationship is really helpful, because it's not going to raise wounds or cause problems with your former partner. So you've got to recognize that you might be through it, but they're not. So do what you do privately, and also safely. It's a very different world with Tinder and Bumble and COVID, and it's hard to know what you might be exposing yourself to. So if you're interested in going out on a date with someone that you don't know very well, you can actually vet them before the date with their email address, with their social media handles, with any mutual friends that you've got on any social media platforms, and see what kind of information you can get to make sure that this person is not married, not strange, and that is who they say that they are. That's a way to protect yourself. So I would say protect your spouse, your former spouse, protect yourself and go into it safely, and then just have a great time, because this is a whole new world, personally and sexually and spiritually, and these are all really different ways that you have an opportunity to connect with someone. You may not even know what you want. Go and enjoy.
And that you get talking as if there's not just life after divorce, that it can be a revelatory, enjoyable outcome for you in the end, and presumably not just from the dating. So what is your experience, whether it's personally or through clients that you've worked with? Because there's still that sense, I think, that people think, oh, divorce, I'm going to be miserable for the rest of my life, and it's just not true, is it?
It's usually not true. And by no means am I minimizing the pain and the trauma that divorce does cause, but it is an opportunity, whether or not we take it, to really find out more about who we are, what we love, and what our interests are, and the life that we want to live. We are often in a marriage, we don't know how much we have molded ourselves with the other person, and in that amalgamation, lost our own interests a bit. So for me personally, I would say that one of the joys was just seeing I had so much more strength than I ever thought I had. My children were 1 and 3. I was breastfeeding when their dad and I divorced. And that is a hard time to be a parent, let alone to be going through a divorce. So I look back and I can say, I am stronger than I think I am. And when I have hard times in life now, I can look back at that and know I can handle things. For other people, it could be practical, like they never knew how to balance a bank account or change a tire or braid their little girl's hair. And they get to pick up on this whole half of life that they didn't experience before and expand themselves practically, intellectually. And then finally, for many men that didn't have a really close relationship with their children, and for many women that didn't spend a lot of time in the workplace, this provides an opportunity for them to learn a lot more about the joys and the challenges that they weren't experiencing in those realms and really become so much deeper and so much more full.
And on that very inspirational note, I say thank you so much, Erika, and I look forward to getting you back on the show soon.
Thank you so much, Susie.
And it is good to know, isn't it, that you can go through this life-changing experience and come out the other end. And it is a catalyst often for many of us for amazing, amazing change. So we're now coming to the learning stage, a little brief clip of our masterclass. And in this, I'm just going to take us through the last stage of the 5 key stages in your divorce plan. Just some things to think about at the last stage of this, where we're going to talk about dealing with the unexpected. Now, with any plan, whether it's a parenting plan or just your own personal plan of what kind of things you want to discuss around the finances, you need to remember that you cannot control your co-parent or your ex. And so you need to think about different options, plan A, plan B, plan C. So for example, let's say financially, what you can have the best plans in the world, but what if one of you becomes made redundant and you're the main financial provider, or lose your job completely, which of course is happening a lot with COVID? What about if one of you has a promotion and that means moving town or city or even country? And you've got to remember that you as parents, co-parents, you're a team. So it is a good idea to talk about these things as a really, really early stage. Now, you're not necessarily going to come up with solutions for them all, but sometimes having those discussions can alert you to something that maybe is more likely than you thought. And then what you need to do if that happens, you do need to have a backup plan. So even if it's just for yourself personally, even better if it's something you can discuss together, that's a wise thing to do, because things do tend to happen with the best laid plans of mice and men, as they say. Things happen that you weren't expecting and that can have a massive, massive impact on your life. Emotionally as well, this can happen. So sometimes someone has a parent who dies and that leaves them emotionally debilitated for a while, and that affects their co-parenting or their ability to work. And it's really important that as a co-parenting team that you eat whatever the state quality of your relationship, even if you're not best friends, that you have compassion and understanding for each other. It could be that one of you's caring for elderly parents. You need to understand that parent has additional responsibilities of time and emotional energy as well. And these are good things to talk about. And these are kind of things you can just be talking about, often with the help of mediation. It's good to get them out and air them. It could be that all these things have an impact on your time and the cost and location as well. So if you're having to travel every other weekend to an elderly parent, that's going to affect the scheduling of the co-parenting, and you want to make sure that the other co-parent is aware of what's really going on in your life, because sometimes we can become a bit cut off from each other and not really fill each other in with what's going on. So those co-parenting practicalities. I mean, I had an experience when my children's father at one point announced that he was being made redundant. And that was a pretty terrifying prospect for me at the time. It's like, oh my God, who's going to pay the bills? I relied very heavily with three small children on his financial contribution. So we had a chat about it, and he for that period of time has spent more time looking after the children, so I had more time to spend trying to earn a bit of extra money. So we kind of found a way around it, and to be able to have that flexibility in your relationship is really, really important, because these kind of things will happen. And if you've got a relationship where the other person is perhaps not so, it's not so easy to come to those kind of agreements, perhaps the communication is still very poor, then if you know that right up front, because you've tried to have that conversation, then you may be thinking, well, a clean break is really important in this divorce, because you know that you're not going to really be able to rely well on any financial ongoing contribution, because if anything changes, you can't even have a conversation about it. So it can actually have an impact on the kind of settlement that you want. And finally, you want to also talk a little bit about healing and resilience, allowing time for yourself. It's especially busy mums, we tend to just charge ahead and try and do everything. I nearly killed myself that way. My appendix burst and I didn't even notice at the time, and it was a real wake-up call to me that I should have not tried to be super mum, and I should have allowed myself time to heal and to look after myself better. And I think you need to be aware of that with your co-parent. If you see they're just on hyperdrive, fight and flight mode, think about, actually that's not good for the children. If they become ill, that's going to affect you. So even from a selfish point of view, it's really good to make sure that everyone is looking after themselves properly. And as we were talking about with Erika just then, starting over, moving on, looking at how perhaps coaching can be a fantastic tool, transition coaching, dealing with and if you are in that situation, then in the Secret Divorce group we've got the lovely Jane Parslow who can help you with that. She is a transitions coach. Dealing with ongoing tricky relationships, thinking about, that's not going to go away. What are you doing about that? Well, Ruth Driscoll. She's amazing. She's been helping lots of the members of the Secret Divorce group. In fact, we had a meet up the other night. We have a monthly meet up on Zoom with members of the group, and they were sharing some brilliant advice for everyone there. And it's just so important to focus on a positive future, because what you focus on is what you get. So these are just some of the ways that we can help divorcing people take back control. We cover a lot of these areas in the Divorce Masterclass, which is an online masterclass, lots of videos. You can use the QR code and access a big chunk of it for free if you're quick. I can't keep it like that forever, but I do want to make sure that people get access to the help and resources that they need. Or join us in the Secret Divorce group, which is not on Facebook. So moving forwards now, we're going to move on to our shared story, which is there was a video interview I did with Nikki and Benjamin, and they have a book called Our Happy Divorce, and I have to admit I read it with some trepidation, and it was fantastic. I really enjoyed it. It was a lovely account of their transition into an extended family. So I've reduced it down to a 5-minute short little bit here, which I'd love to share with you, and so enjoy this little bit of our shared story.
Everything that we've done through these last 13 and a half years has been about him, because he was supposed to be here. This marriage isn't a failure because we have this child. So we as parents can't fail him, which I think too many people do. They fail their children just because their own marriage failed.
Right, and the idea that from the beginning, the fake it till you make it is.
You don't like each other in the beginning,
no
matter what.
Yeah, divorces don't end because, end with a kumbaya moment, of love and compassion. It's the fruit salad of emotions, and the two main buttons or triggers are the romance and finance buttons. And as you know, divorce presses both those extremely hard. So, everybody's been around a divorced family that does not get along. And it's an uncomfortable, palpable situation that makes everybody uncomfortable. So what we decided from the beginning was, let's just put on our big boy pants, right? Let's just, when Nikki comes to the game, Asher's game, with her new boyfriend, I go over, and when Asher runs over and hugs Chad, Nikki's new boyfriend at the time, husband now, I go over, and then after he's done, I give Chad a hug and smile. And meanwhile, my insides are doing somersaults, but on the outside, it's sort of like the duck on the water, right? On the outside, I probably looked like I was floating nicely smooth across the water, but underneath, my legs are kicking like crazy. And that was sort of the process of what we went through. So everybody didn't, most importantly Asher, but then everybody else around us didn't feel like walking on eggshells.
They might have felt a little strange at first.
Right. Right. Yeah.
But it actually eased people around us a bit. Yeah. Everybody, I think there's still people that think we're weird.
This is the reason why actually we decided to write the book, is because people didn't, it's so against the norm of what people think on divorce. And even when you being in the field and being around couples, when you first read it, it's like, come on. These people are trying to get a reality show, or it's just so far-fetched that eventually people's like, we would just go about our normal lives of posting on social media, and people would have comments like, you guys are amazing, you're inspirational.
I think people would also say, well, if you get along so well, why aren't you married?
Right. It's a different kind of love, right? Yeah. It's a sort of best friend love.
I think we respect each other more now than we did when we were married.
No question. And we do live on the same street. And our son is able to go down and go between houses whenever he wants. There's no, what are you doing at your mother's? It's my night. Why'd you stop by there?
I mean, we do try to keep a schedule for him, because I think that helps keep kids. Yeah. I think it's
normalized.
Good for,
Right.
But I mean, if he wants to go down there and have dinner, if he wants to come to my house and have dinner, it's totally fine.
Right. And so other people were saying these things and sort of egging us on or pushing us to write this book.
Good.
Because it is, at least in my experience, and why I sort of convinced Nikki for a long time to write it with me, because I think it's so meaningful that it comes from both of us.
Right.
That it's, alternating chapters. It did take 4 years to write, because look, we don't get along 100% of the time. Our happy divorce is not a happy, there would be fights, and Nikki would say, I'm not doing your effing book, and you can stick your book where the sun doesn't shine. So we wouldn't talk about the book for a month. And then, it sort of evolved.
I mean, we would talk during that month,
right.
But we wouldn't talk about the book.
Because it was shoved somewhere where we didn't want to get it. But, and then we decided through the process of writing it and bringing up, we realized what an important role that our spouses play in this whole deal. And we felt it to be appropriate for them to write a chapter. So when you said all the characters involved, have a voice, is my wife, Nadia, and Nikki's husband, Chad, both wrote a book, because, what an important chapter in the book. What an important role they play. And what they have to do is exactly what Nikki and I had to do in the beginning, and that's put ego aside. Mm-hmm. It's not about, and so they had to buy into what we were trying to accomplish. And they've done so with grace. And the outcome has been that they've just sort of fit into our lives, each of our lives, perfectly.
What a lovely story. I love the reality and the groundedness. There's no fluffiness there. Yeah, it is tough having a good, strong co-parenting relationship. but it's a lot easier than having a nasty one. So we're just going to have a quick roundup, and then we get to our lovely experiential finale with Una. So just very briefly, we have the divorce financial workshop again. This is the waiting list, still waiting to pin down when we can have the next one. But as you can see, people, thanks Divorce Squad, I love that name, people had a great time at the last one. And we hope that if you are in that situation where it'd be really good to have a couple of hours with a whole load of amazing experts to talk to, and then that would be a great workshop for you to join in with. And we're now ready for our healing. So I'm going to run the slide and then introduce you to Una. Welcome, Una. Thank you so much for joining us on the show.
It's my pleasure, Susie. Thanks for having me.
And before we get started, could you just give us a little idea? First, for those who don't already know you, tell us what you do, because we know you are parenting after separation. I know you're a child psychologist. You're very highly qualified, and you've worked a lot with parents who are in the divorce situation. But there's another side to you as well, a sort of healing side, which we're going to experience. Perhaps you could give us a little bit of an intro to that, so we know what to expect.
Yes, sure. So even though I spent 6 years in full-time studies, and I do have master's degree in educational psychology, my professional title is Registered Circle of Security Parenting Facilitator. And that's what I do, because often separated parents, they really do want to put their children's need first, but they just have too much going on to focus on supporting their children in the way they really want to. And I help them to take them the guesswork out of this process. So Circle of Security Parenting is an easy to follow step-by-step process based on decades of attachment research that helps them to nurture their children's sense of security even when they have little time, little energy, like really little to give, as often is the case when people are going through separation.
And what's the little process you're going to take us through now?
So tonight I'll take you through just a few minutes of relaxation. And before I do that, just, a little bit of background why I'm going to do that. So again, from research, we know that when it comes to children's emotional security, them feeling safe, them feeling loved, the main contributing factor to that is parents feeling safe. And what happens to parents' sense of safety when they're going through separation? I don't need to spell it out. And so with so much uncertainty, quite often parents find themselves in that chronic fight or flight state. And, whilst it can take a while to put all the pieces of the puzzle to find the right place for them, what parents can do straight away is to really look after their nervous system and to help to send their brain a signal that, is in that chronic fight or flight state that you mentioned in the show already, that in this moment, the situation is safe. Like right now, you can relax. And then from that place, it's so much easier to parent, so much easier to connect with your children, so much easier to see what it is they need and give it to them.
And we're going to have a little taster of that. And am I right in thinking that you will give a link to anyone watching online in the comments afterwards, once I tag you into the different platforms, so people can download it and learn more and find out more? Is that right?
Yes, people can. I'll share the link, and simply by going to parentingafterseparation.co.uk, they can access a free guided relaxation there.
Wonderful. So I'm going to give a little bit of gentle background music, so everyone relax and enjoy.
So the fastest way to send your brain message that it is safe, that you are safe, is by slowing down your breathing. And even if you do that just for 1 minute, it's very likely that you notice that you're feeling calmer straight away. So if you are comfortable, allow your eyes to close and make yourself comfortable. If you need to do a little wiggle or a shuffle, just adjust your body and draw your focus to your breath. Notice the air coming in and flowing out. And allow your breath to slow down a little bit and deepen a little bit. Notice short pauses in between each inhale and each exhale. Notice what else is happening in your body right now. There might be some active places or some tight places. Simply notice. There's no need to change it or make it go away. Deep, slow breaths. And as you continue to breathe deeply, bring your awareness to your heart. Connect with your heart energy. And now think of your child, and if you have more than one children, just connect with one of them for now. Notice what's it like to be in their presence. Notice what you appreciate about them. What you love about them. Notice the delight that fills your heart as you think about your child. And take a few more slow, comfortable breaths. allow your eyes to gently open and come back into the room. And notice how you're feeling just after a few minutes of slower, deeper breathing. How are you, Susie?
Lovely. I'm just thinking, wouldn't that be amazing to have both parents do before a mediation session where they're talking about the children and co-parenting? You'd have a very different discussion that would be genuinely not just child focused, but it's so amazing to remember how amazing your children are and how they make you feel, and to tap into that as an energy source instead of looking at them and feeling guilty or stressed. It totally changes. That's absolute magic. I loved it. Thank you so much, Una. Thank you so much.
My pleasure, Susie.
And I'll see you again soon, I hope. Perhaps even physically in person, which would be lovely.
That'd be nice.
Catch up soon. Thank you. Wow, wouldn't that be quite transformational if you were to do that with the father or mother of your children and child before doing what could otherwise be a stressful thing that you think, oh God, we've got to talk about the parenting plan or the finances around the children. I think that would be like a magic bullet and completely change the experience. So I'll make sure that we'll get Luna to add a link to that so you can access it. So we now come to the end of the show, and in the war of divorce, on the battlefield of family separation, always, always make peace your weapon of choice.